Tonight, if anyone happens to have the plot for Birds of Prey, please send it back to the writers because they lost it a long time ago. Batman and Nightwing share the entire back halves of their issues. Something tells me I can sue for fraud. And Green Lantern Corps definitely didn't make me cry. Shut up. All that and more this week on the Not So New 52. Hello everyone and welcome to episode 29 of the Not So New 52. I am your host and got two little announcements to make before we get into the meat of the show. Announcement number one, we are getting into crossover time. Yes, for the first 7 issues or so of every one of these comics, we managed to stay within our own comic, but now events are starting and it's going to get real complicated real quick. Next week, actually, is the first one with iVampire / Justice League Dark crossing over into each other. And the only thing you're going to really notice on the show is that any comic that's part of an event or crossover will be pushed up to the top of the show instead of wherever it normally would take place. But the one thing I really wanted to do is, I know you can't really see this in the video version very well, but I made a flow chart of literally every event in the entire New 52 and how they all flow together across different series. This is an actual cry for help. Please save me. There is no reason I should have done this, but I did, and it is gloriously inane. Oh, boy. So yeah, it's going to be something coming up. Additionally, the Justice League comic that I'm covering this week starts the backups of Shazam in there. Now, for anyone who knows, Shazam is going to be a backup for pretty much the next 13 issues of Justice League, and it's all going to be collected into one big trade. I am going to be covering each of the Shazam backups the same way I would be covering any other backup, which is to say whenever the next 5th week happens, which I think is in about 2 or 3 months, and I'll just cover all the Shazam stories that have happened in the meantime. So yeah, that's about all I really wanted to tell you is coming up. So let's talk about the comics coming up in this particular episode. March 21st, 2012 had 13 comics, all of which were the number 7 issues of Batman, Birds of Prey, Catwoman, Nightwing, Red Hood and the Outlaws, Supergirl, Green Lantern Corps, Captain Atom, DC Universe Presents, Justice League, Wonder Woman, Blue Beetle, and Legion of Superheroes. Oh boy, I got some words on some of those, but regardless, let's jump right into it with the final part before the Batman crossover, Night of the Owls. Batman number 7, written by Scott Snyder, art by Greg Capullo. We left off last issue with Batman breaking out of the Court of Owls labyrinth and seemingly dying underwater, whereas the Court of Owls went and woke up all of their talons to go do something. This issue picks up with a flashback to Batman's creation where he's bleeding out in, I think it's year 1, and he sees a bat smash into the study where he's about to die, and he's like, yes, I will become a bat, and you know the rest. So in this, it has a narration saying how in the moment leading up to death, some cultures believe that you would see truths beyond yourself, but if you managed to come back from that moment of death, you would come back a changed man, a truly whatever. Point being is that we see that bat who crashed into the window actually managed to get back outside, and as it did, it was captured by an owl, which then just straight up ate it. So that's canon now. We get a young girl, or I'd say a teenage girl, named Harper, who is using a car battery to wake up Batman, like defibrillator style. He shoots up. She's wearing a welder's mask, so he doesn't recognize her at first, but as soon as she takes off, she's like, oh, it's you. I thought I told you to stay away from me. And Harper's like, oh, okay, bye. So I guess we're supposed to know her at this point, but we don't. Like, I double checked this. I did a lot of searching. We have not met her. It's just kind of an implied story that's already happened. Regardless, Batman gets up and starts trudging his way through the snow outside. And we see what the owls are doing, and we keep cutting back to them throughout the entire story. So I'll just tell you straight up now. They're just waking up all the Talons. They're jamming them full of whatever serums they gotta do to bring them back. They're giving them all their weapons and such. And then at the very end of the issue, they point out the city and say, "This is Batman. Take a look at Batman. He is your enemy. Now go and take Gotham. Scree, scree." That's it. So the Batman stuff is the more interesting, where Batman, he's struggling through the sewers again, trying to find a way, I guess, into the Batcave, or maybe it's just the nearest entry. He gets to a place where a dude with a shotgun saying, like, "All right, identify yourself." And Batman is just like, "It's me, Alfred. For God's sakes, it's me." And Alfred's freaked out. He's like, "Oh my God, you were gone for 2 weeks. We thought we found the hole that you made in the ice to like break yourself out, because clearly you didn't die at the end of the last issue, but we couldn't find your body and we thought someone else took you." He's like, "Yeah, no, someone else did take me, but regardless, let's get back into the cave." So they get into the cave and Batman freaks out because in the cave is a Talon, but it actually turns out that it's the one that he killed in the previous issue. And the Court of Owls also just kind of threw it out in that same sort of area because he was of no use to them anymore. So Alfred's like, "All right, look, you can deal with him later. Right now, let's get you patched up." He's like, "No, put the Talon on the table." So Bruce starts running tests on the Talon, and at this point, Nightwing walks in, and he's like, "Hey, Bruce, Alfred said you wanted privacy, but it's clear that you are not okay. Who's this guy?" And Bruce gives them a rundown that apparently all the Talons have this alloy called Electrum in them, like down to their cellular level, which allows them to be essentially put to sleep and brought back whenever. So they are functionally immortal. And apparently they do this by like filling up a tooth with Electrum, and that like seeps into their bloodstream or whatever. But he does some DNA tests and discovers that this guy, this particular Talon, his name is William Cobb, and he is Nightwing, aka Dick Grayson's great-grandfather. And Nightwing's like, "Oh, cool. And you weren't immediately going to tell me that?" And he just starts unloading on Batman of like, "Oh, man, you have no idea the week I've had over in my book, Nightwing," which very heavily ties in with this issue. But blah, 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 how dare you, you have no right, you got to feel something every once in a while. And then Batman just straight up backhands him and knocks out one of his teeth. And we see that the tooth is also got the Court of Owls sigil on it. Dick Grayson was going to be a Talon because apparently the circus that he was raised in, they give Talons in training to the Court of Owls at a certain age, but because Dick Grayson got out by living with Bruce Wayne, he never had to. So that's a thing. And Bruce is just like, "Man, I don't even know what's going on anymore. I thought I knew Gotham. I thought I knew everything. I clearly know nothing." And Dick Grayson's like, "Yeah, I mean, you don't, but like, that's not such a... The Court of Owls is not nigh omnipotent. They're just another bad guy. Go kick their ass." And then we end up on the final page of, scree, scree, all the Talons descend on Gotham. So next issue picks up with the crossover event of Night of the Owls, which hits up just a whole bunch of series, pretty much every Bat book that's going on. So we will see what goes on in that. As for this particular issue, it's the explaining issue. It's the issue where it says like, "Oh, here's the reason why this happened. That dude who was killed back in issue 1, he was the dude that this Talon killed first, because he went to go see Dick Grayson because Dick Grayson was originally going to be a Talon." Like, it's just tying up all the strings and being like, "Yep, see, we had a plan. We did this." And it's not bad, but because it's just so explaining, it's like, I get you're proud of your whole story, but like, yeah. Like the way I explained it, the Court of Owls stuff does kind of break it up. It does give it a little bit of tension. Just me putting all that into one section does make it sound a bit more of a huge expedition dump, but it does split it up itself. But I don't feel like it does it enough. I feel like it does suffer from just constantly being speech bubble after speech bubble after speech bubble of electrum and how the ancient Greeks did things with coins on the eyes and how the cold keeps them from regenerating and how it's a chemical shock and blah, 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 blah. It's just so much of like, see, we really thought this through. And I'm like, yeah, I didn't doubt it. Did we really need this much put into it? So, yeah, I don't know. It's a fine issue, and it does act as sort of like the lead-in to the event. But it's not great, I guess. It's definitely nothing compared to like the last 2 issues of this book, which I felt were very, very good quality. So I'm going to go ahead and give this one a 7, just a solid 7. The art is mainly what does it, because I really do feel like Bruce is he's literally just a corpse standing there examining this other corpse. And like, I can feel just how tired and fed up with all that he is, especially once Nightwing starts yelling at him. So yeah, no, I'm enjoying it, and I'm interested in what the event's going to be doing with Night of the Owls, but this particular issue left, I don't know, just a bland taste. Birds of Prey number 7, written by Duane Swierczynski, art by Jesús Saíz. Last issue left off with the team going in to confront Choke and some other stuff, man. It was a ride, and this issue is not much better. So we start off with the battle of them against all of Choke's mind control victims or whatever. And Canary is having to constantly tell pretty much everyone on her team, hey, just a reminder, guys, we don't kill people. So just don't kill people. And Poison Ivy's like, yeah, okay, right. And she slams this dude's head into a wall and seemingly snaps his neck. So Ivy's immediately attacked by Black Canary, who's trying to just take her down before she starts killing other people. And at one point, Black Canary throws a punch at Ivy, and as it lands, the title of the comic is there, but it looks like a sound effect. So it looks like she punches Ivy, and the sound effect is brain damage. Not the best lettering, but regardless, Ivy is down for at least a fraction of a second. Then she gets up and starts strangling Canary with her vines. And as she's doing so, Choke puts the dude that they were helping, who I genuinely don't even remember his name, and I don't think it matters, the dude like they helped last issue, back into his trance, and he starts attacking Ivy for whatever reason. Then we cut down to the basement, and Starling and Batgirl are around, I think his name's Trevor. I'll correct it if I'm wrong. But anyway, the guy who is like the scientist, and he's been Choke the whole time. He was controlling them all. So, yeah. And they didn't even like do a thing where they were like, oh, look at me. Like, it's literally showing him typing the words in on his iPad, and that's what's causing it. So Starling's got a gun on him and is just like, yeah, okay, we know it's you. Time to stop. And he's like, oh, okay, I guess I'll give up. And then he starts saying his little rhyme thing, which puts Starling in a trance, and he tells her to shoot Batgirl. Batgirl managed to dodge out of the way, but it still clips her arm. And then Black Canary's like, oh, geez, how could I possibly stop all these people? Oh, right, I have a superpower. And she uses her canary cry, which deafens like everybody and takes them all out for a second. Batgirl and Black Canary managed to get on the hunt out of the building for Trevor, I think. Yeah, Trevor Cahill. There we go. I was right. I remembered something. And he gets away. Or no, sorry. They catch him. He then gets knocked out by Black Canary and Batgirl. And then Batgirl literally tells Black Canary, hey, by the way, Starling tried to kill me. So clearly she's been compromised. Don't trust her, like, to do things. And she's like, what are you talking about? She's my teammate. I trust her implicitly. And it's like, dude, you know this guy mind controls. Why would you not think that he... Oh, regardless, Batgirl kind of takes offense to the fact that she's not trusted, and she goes off pouting away. 2 hours later, Trevor's being interrogated by the whole team, and apparently Trevor knows a lot about them, and apparently Black Canary may have murdered her previous husband. I don't know anything about that, So Ivy steps up and is about to like put her this little trance on Trevor. But then Trevor apparently implanted an idea in her mind that the plant part of her and the human part of her can't coexist. So when he activates her, she starts like shedding off her plant self, and she's freaking out. So then Starling puts a gun up to Trevor's head, and he's just like, I'm literally still in control of you. Shoot Katana now. And Katana dodges it easily, but Black Canary's concerned Katana's going to really overreact. So she wrestles the gun away from Starling before Katana can swipe. And then Katana just walks up to Choke and is just like, okay, I know how to deal with this. And she cuts off Choke's head. And Black Canary's like, dude, we don't kill. How many times do I have to say this? And she's like, well, now my husband will tell us what we need to know. And it's like, your husband's not a sword. What if you're just crazy? And she's like, wow, okay, thanks. So then Starling finally comes to, and she's like, what are you talking about? I didn't try to kill anybody. She's like, no, you were clearly under just mind control. We just covered this. And she's like, nah, you're the only killer around here, Black Canary. I'm out. So everyone's angry at each other because they seemingly can't understand this dude mind controls people, despite the fact that we know he mind controls people, and they know that we know that he mind controls people. Regardless, Black Canary goes to Trevor's apartment, starts looking for stuff, and then just ends up beating up a bunch of his electronics and walls. So then Batgirl comes in the room and she's like, hey, look, I get it. Like, yeah, I was pouty, but we'll always be friends no matter what. And so they hug each other. And then Black Canary gets a call from Katana that says, hey, you know that guy I killed? Turns out he wasn't Choke. Dun, dun, dun is what I am with this book. I'm so done. Like, what? I don't understand. First off, from 2 issues ago to last issue was the most confusing jump I have ever had between a comic. And then this issue, it's like everyone just forgot that his power is mind control. Which, if they made a point of like doing the thing where it showed that people were missing time again, I would be okay with it. But like, they don't. They don't do that. People are still aware that these people were mind controlled, and they just, I don't know. It's really bugging me, this book now. And the art, I don't know. I don't think it's actually any different than it previously was, but it just feels lesser. But maybe that's just because of the story accompanying it. I don't know. It's a mess. And it sucks, because I at least had faith that this book would try to do something interesting. But while it does have an interesting enough concept, it's just not delivering on any of the details. It's just like, yeah, the guy can mind control, and then this thing happens. Why did that happen? I don't know. It was just magic. So overall, I'm going to give this like a 5.5, and it's just going to keep dropping if they don't figure out how to actually like set something up and then follow through. That's all I'm really asking for here, is just to set something up and follow through. Catwoman number 7, written by Judd, Winick, art by Adriana, Melo. We left off last issue with Catwoman having a hissy fit with Batman, possibly having a death wish, and then going to the apartment of her friend Gwen, who is also a fence. This issue picks up following some rich foreign dude who's got 2 hot girls in his Ferrari, and they're just zooming around town saying like, well, you know, we could go back to our apartment if you want. And he's like, I would like that very much. And so they're already stripping as they're getting out of this guy's car. And as he's running out of the car in a Speedo, we see that Catwoman has jumped in the car, has taken the keys, and is driving it away. Just another night in the life. And as she's speeding away, we see somebody on a rooftop staring over her, seemingly with electric powers based off of what's coming out of his eyes. And he's like, I was going to steal that car, but it looks like I got competition. Awesome. So then we see Catwoman. She's in Gwen's apartment, and she's just gushing over how she stole the car and how she's always so happy whenever she gets to steal things. And then Gwen starts asking questions, be like, hey, so that car, you drove it straight over to the chop shop, right? And she's like, yeah, I didn't quite much like the guy who was chopping up the cars, but everything went fine at the deal. And then Gwen's like, apparently you were over an hour late. And she's like, yeah, I took first test run, whatever. You expect me to drop it off right away. And then Gwen immediately gets pissed off, like, hey, we do things by the book. You were the one who came to me and said you needed a tether so that you don't kill yourself. You're going to follow the rules, all right? Rule number 1, stop having sex with Batman. And she's like, oh, come on, man. But then Gwen doubles down and she's like, all right, look, you want the truth? There was a shooting near the meetup point and I just chilled out in like 2 blocks over until the cops all left. I didn't take it for a joyride. I was being safe. And she's like, all right, fine. Sorry, I was so tough on you. And she's like, nah, keep doing it. It's good. And then we go to that detective, Alvarez, who's really got a thing for Catwoman. And he's already figured out that she's stealing cars. And of course his lieutenant is just like, you stay away from Catwoman, detective. That's an order. And he's like, but boss. And he's like, shut up. And then Alvarez is trying to figure out what in the hell's going on, considering that, you know, the cops who were trying to kill her before now don't want her to be touched. Something weird's going on. And then we get a scene that, as far as I can tell, is set up for something later, is just 2 prostitutes on a street corner. And a guy comes up and they're like, hey, honey, anything we can do for you? And he opens up his van door and tells them to get in. And they both kind of get creeped out by this, so they try to back up and leave. But when they do, they're hit with tranquilizers and are put into the van anyway. It's 3 pages. It doesn't come up again. So Catwoman then gets a call from some guy from the chop shop who apparently got a notice that there are 5 Porsche Carreras coming in, which are apparently super high end or whatever, and he just wants Catwoman to get one of them. Catwoman calls up Gwen, says like, hey, can I do this? And she's like, let me check it out first, make sure it's good. And Catwoman's like, I mean, it's going on tonight. And she's like, let me check it out first. And he's like, fine, all right, whatever. But she goes and looks at the Porsches anyway, and she's like, there's like 3 guys here. There's no security. This isn't even like a risk at all. I'm just going to go do it. So she jumps in, pepper sprays some guys, about to jump in the car when, oops, it was Detective Alvarez. It was a sting the whole time. But as he's about to take down Alvarez, the electric-powered dude from before shows up, sends out this massive lightning bolt amongst all the cars, and Catwoman's like, all right, guess that's my cue to leave. And as she goes to leave, the electric dude takes her motorcycle and tells her to hop on. And then they start talking, and apparently his name is Spark. He looks a hell of a lot like the foreign dude at the beginning, but I think, like, that's just a limitation of the art. I don't think it's the same guy. And they get to talking. It's just like, hey, we should steal stuff together. And Catwoman's like, sounds good to me. And then the issue just ends. Okay, so first and foremost, I know Gilliam March is a very divisive figure in terms of art. I did like the way his book looked, though. I think it did a very good job. And Adriana Melo does a decent job at imitating the style, but there is some definite differences, and it's not quite up to the same level, which, again, I understand that's divisive to say that Gilliam March has a level, but I think that the art is just a little bit lacking in this book. Specifically, like, I couldn't tell if the foreign dude on the first page and this guy on the last page are the same dude, despite the fact that there really should be no reason they are the same dude, but they look nearly identical. So, yeah, just a couple issues with that. Writing-wise, we left off last issue with Catwoman in such a super emotional state, and then this issue she's just kind of like, that was just a temporary thing, don't worry about it. Which I can see being a natural progression of emotions, but at the same time, it does kind of feel like, what was the point of it then? Why did we have that big breakdown if we're not even going to bother with it? So, yeah, whatever. I'm okay with the prostitute scene if it's setting up future stuff. The detective scene is what's really on me right now. It just feels like they need to have some aspect of Catwoman's being chased by the law, but they don't really ever want her to get anywhere near caught. So they just have this detective spinning his wheels constantly. Like, oh, I'm always one step behind you, Catwoman, when in reality he's like 3 miles behind her. So, yeah, I don't know. Overall, the rating's just a little bit low compared to some previous, more emotionally charged issues, but I can't expect that of every issue or else it would lose its punch when it does do the emotionally charged ones. So overall, I'm going to give it a 6. I think it's fine, but it definitely has a lot of room for improvement. But in terms of starting the new arc, I genuinely don't know where we're going to go. If the whole thing's just a team up between her and Spark or what. So we'll see where it goes from here. Nightwing number 7, written by Kyle Higgins, art by Eddy Barrows and Geraldo Borges. We left off last issue with Psycho being revealed as Raymond and then him blowing up the entire circus thing. This issue picks up with pretty much exactly where we left off, but a short little flashback of Dick Grayson seeing his parents dying and then Raymond dying and blah, blah, blah. So, onto the carnage and mayhem. Apparently, it's a chemical fire, so the sprinklers are making it worse. All the doors are barricaded, nobody can escape, and Dick's just trying to figure out what to do first. And so Psycho comes up and he's like, "Hey, Dick, this is what happens when you left the circus, for leaving me, for ruining me." And he gives this whole backstory of how when his car hit the river, which is apparently how he died, I genuinely forgot about that, he wasn't even in it. It was all just a ruse by Old Man Haley, who gave him up to the bad men, who kept him in darkness and made him train with like claws and stuff like that. And in the end, he was trained to be a killer, but in the end, he wasn't even good enough to do that. So they left him in the forest to die with birds clawing at his eyes. And that's that. And Nightwing's like, okay, why do you blame me for that, though? Like, what do I have to do with any of that? And as he's fighting them, Nightwing realizes, okay, these fires, they're made of magnesium. Magnesium, water can't put out, but sand can. There's a whole bunch of sand in the catacombs underneath Gotham on which this circus is pretty much built. So he knocks out this huge dangling electronic scoreboard to break through the ground beneath the circus. And it causes just this huge tunnel to open up that all the sand then kicks up from and starts smothering the fire. So people aren't going to burn to death, but now they're going to asphyxiate because there's a lot of sand up in the air. And Raya, of course, the girl looking around, who wanted Dick to die because of what she did to Raymond, I guess. She's like, oh, but it was only supposed to be Dick. Now everyone else is dying too. And you see her crying and, oh, she didn't want this. But then we see finally the reason as to, well, okay, real quick, before they say that, Grayson's like, Psycho, how could you do this, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, it wasn't just me, the entire circus was in on it. Like, Raya, yeah, she's working with me. She was the reason that, like, Old Man Haley gave you the circus. She was the reason that you took the circus. She was whispering in your ear the whole time. She's totally on my side and would never, ever betray me. And, of course, at that moment, Raya pushes the button to let all the people out because, yeah. So, then we get the reveal of why Psycho blames Dick Grayson. And apparently it's because he was originally supposed to be the one chosen to be trained as a killer, which, if you're keeping up with the Batman story at all, this was just explained in Batman number 7. It's a whole thing with the Court of Owls and training their assassins and whatnot, and I'll get to that in a second. But regardless, when he left and lived with Bruce Wayne, obviously Haley Circus wasn't able to give him up anymore, so they gave up the second guy, who was Raymond. So then at that point, Dick Grayson throws Raymond off the edge of the scoreboard and then catches him with a grappling hook through the leg. And Raymond's like, no, you don't get to save me. And he cuts the rope and falls to his death. Or at least seemingly does. But then on the next page it says, yeah, they found his body. He's definitely dead. So Dick changed in civilian gear. Raya's being arrested because she just straight up admitted to being an accomplice to all of it. And as she's being walked out, she shoots Dick Grayson just the most hateful of glances, and then that's pretty much it. Then we cut over to Wayne Manor, and this is basically just a slimmed down version of this long ass conversation that happened in Batman number 7 this week. So just to give you the points that even Bruce says that Dick says that he was ignoring because he was so caught up on everything that happened earlier, he's only partially listening. Court of Owls, they have assassins named Talons. Haley Circus was giving them up to the Court of Owls constantly to be trained. The acrobatics really helped be an assassin. That book of names that Dick found in the center ring, that was the name of all the people who had been given up to the Court of Owls. So there's a guy here that was a Talon whose name was William Cobb, and he is Dick Grayson's great-grandfather. And Dick gets really pissed off that Batman didn't tell him any of this stuff sooner. And then Batman backhands him, knocks out one of his teeth. And we see that it has the Court of Owls sigil inside of it. So he was also going to be a Talon, which we already knew based off the previous scene. But, it was in Batman, so we had to have it here as well. And then Dick Grayson gets up and he walks away and he explains the book thing. And then he goes on this little monologue here that doesn't really seem to like matter to anything that we just got revealed to us, but it's the end of the arc, so he has to have something to say. But he's basically just saying like, oh, your past is, something that can shape you, but it doesn't define you, and blah blah blah. But then it really ends up with Alfred saying, oh, by the way, Master Grayson, this just came over the GCPD wires. There's a couple of murders, one of which was using your eskrima sticks, like your little fighting sticks. One was at the scene, and so they think you did it. And he's like, thanks, Alfred. That's going to be a job for me in the next arc. Nightwing. All right. So, fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's not the most bombastic ending. I mean, you would think a giant electrical scoreboard crashing through to the catacombs of Gotham would be bombastic, but it really did just feel like, yeah. And it really does hurt. Just personally, I read Batman #7 before I read this. So the entire back half of this issue where they're just saying the exact same things, I understand that because they are so tightly woven, it's necessary to know both, but it does feel like because you read both of them, you're only getting half a comic out of this one. So, yeah, it's just a bit iffy. Next week we pick up with a tie-in to the Night of the Owls storyline, so look out for that. But for this particular issue, I'm going to give it like a... I just want to say like a 6.5, and really what that all comes down to is the fact that this arc kind of felt really unfocused the entire time. Like, if you just view the focus as Dick Grayson is running the circus, then it's fine. It's fine. But as soon as you get into the assassin stuff and the killers and all that, it really makes you start wondering, what was the point of that Batgirl issue? What was the point of the issue with the demon coming out of the Louisiana Bayou? Like, all of that stuff just felt so unnecessary if the end result was just going to be, okay, Dick Grayson just... one of the previous guys was pissed at him because of something outside his control. I don't know. It just felt unnecessary. So yeah, I'm giving this one a 6. But it's not the independent issue's fault. It's because of the setup from prior issues. So yeah, look out for next week with tie-in to the big crossover event. Red Hood and the Outlaws #7, written by Scott Lobdell, art by Kenneth Rocafort. We left off last issue with a flashback issue, and then the issue before that was them killing a human that mutated himself named Crux, who tried to kill Starfire. That's the gist of it. So this issue picks up with Red Hood dropping Crux off at, I believe, Arkham Asylum, and he's put on this disguise of like this doctor who's like, yes, you have to keep him very highly sedated or else he'll get out. And Arkham guards are like, sure, whatever, no big deal. So they drop him off there and they realize that Crux has been stockpiling a whole bunch of alien technology, so they're just going to go take it because spoils of war and whatnot. So they go and take this big ship, and immediately Arsenal's like, oh, this is awesome. We're going to have fun with this. And Starfire's a bit upset because she really wanted to kill the guy, but apparently, well, not even kill the guy, at least bring him to justice. But Red Hood was like, hey, on this planet, they don't really give rights to aliens, so they probably would let him walk free. It's better to just put him in Arkham and forget about him. So at this point, they fly up and they do their own thing. They have a short little bit here of apparently how this ship can hack into, like, any communications from, like, anywhere in the world. And they start listening in on Batman Incorporated and Batwing. So Maybe that's a thing. I don't know. Regardless, they start flying around, and then Red Hood sees a pillow of black smoke, which then turns itself into Essence, his former member of the All Cast. And she's like, hey, Jason, just wanted to tell you it's super awesome that you are helping me kill all the Untitled. It's super great. And it's revealed that they weren't just besties, they were also sort of kind of doing it. So that's a thing. But then he realizes that she basically led him into a trap by sending him to the All Cast and where he was jumped and then sending after the All Untitled. Like, all this was her doing. So he brings out that big sword thing that he got and starts slashing at her. And during this time, Arsenal and Starfire can't see her. It's just Jason talking to himself. And he's basically just trying to ask for answers as to why she's doing what she's doing. And after a little bit, she does become visible to Arsenal and Starfire. And immediately Essence starts getting pissed off and breaks the sword thing, which apparently is supposed to be indestructible. And so then an all-out battle starts to happen. And apparently she was cast out of the All Cast due to some big betrayal that she did, and she won't reveal exactly what it is. But way, way back when everyone was cavemen, there was some black goop that was like a clan of people were messing around with, and they all started getting infected by it, and 9 of them were made, and one of them was even Dukra, who was infected by this black goop, and they were all turned into the Untitled. And when that happened, Dukra is actually Essence's mother. Again, they were all cavemen, they're just immortal. And so Essence said, I was there that day. That's why it's my job to take out the Untitled, because they all have taken my family from me or something like that. So Starfire launches some Starbolts inside the ship, which obviously causes problems considering it's inside a ship. Arsenal tries to right the ship before it crashes, and Starfire's like, all right, there, I took her out. She's nothing but embers now. And she's like, hey, she comes in black smoke. The smoke part is her, not the embers. So she launches a sneak attack behind Starfire. Jason and Roy start firing off bullets and arrows trying to hit her, but then she's like, no weapon made by man could ever hurt me. And then that gives Jason the idea to go through all the alien tech in the ship, and he finds what essentially looks to be like a stun gun, and when he hits her with it, she just disappears. She either teleported or she vaporized or something. It's really unclear, but she just disappears. And immediately Jason asks, like, hey, are you two guys all right? And they're like, dude, you just like found out a major plot dump on your life. Are you all right? And for some reason, this triggers Jason to try to call the flight attendant from like 3 issues ago. But before she can pick up, he hangs up and is just like, no one deserves someone as edgy as me. And then we get a cut over to a Gotham hospital where Miss Sue, the really, 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 really big lady, wakes up from being shot by Red Hood in like issue 2 and says, I'm going to get revenge on Red Hood. Because, yeah. That's this is like almost by definition, like it feels so much like a filler issue, but there are so many big revelations inside of it of like, here's why I'm doing what I'm doing, that it's not. It's necessary. It's a necessary issue, but like nothing of consequence happens. All we got was the flip on Essence, who was already a black shadow like demon lady to begin with. So pretending that she was good for even this long is honestly shocking. Nothing here felt important. And it didn't help the fact with your big reveal at the end of the issue is the fact that a character I have completely forgotten about, who is also in Gotham, way far away from Spaceship Gang, is mounting an attack on Red Hood. Like, what? Who cares? Her power is that she's big. It's just frustrating of how, like, the stakes don't feel like anything sometimes, and yet other times it's like, nope, the fate of the universe is at hand. Like, just pick one. Which one are you doing here? So, I don't know. This one, I honestly can't put it above like a 5.5, and most of that comes down to the fact of it's not doing anything. Like, I know that they're setting up Essence as like, oh, now it's like a three-way battle where she's doing something bad, but then she's also helping with Red Hood to take out the Untitled, who are also doing something bad. But like, I don't care. You've brought up this character barely before, and you're just expecting the fact that, oh, well, she had a history with Red Hood. Oh, did she? I didn't see it. I have no connection here. You're just telling me she did, and that's supposed to be enough. So no, it's like a 5.5, and the art is fine, but it does leave a lot to be desired at points. So, Supergirl number 7, written by Michael Green and Mike Johnson, art by Mahmud Asrar. We left off last issue with the destruction of that city that Supergirl was on, and then she comes back to Earth and she's fighting Rain, and then it turns out Rain has like 3 buddies who are all just as strong as she is. This issue, essentially one extended fight scene, but we do get a bit of backstory at the beginning of Rain and her 3 buddies were just random ass species that were just picked throughout the cosmos, and it looks here to be like a wolf, a bunny, a dinosaur, and the most stereotypical gray alien ever. And they were all in test tubes, and apparently it was a Kryptonian like lab way out in the middle of nowhere in space so that no one could see what they were doing. But when they woke up, the lab was abandoned, and they managed to piece together a couple of things of who they were based off of notes around there. And they took their name from the Kryptonian myth of the world enders, whatever they're called, world killers, because why not? So then we cut to like now, and we see their names. There's Rain, who is the leader, Daymax, who's the wolf one, who's just great at blowing stuff up, Perilous, who's the dinosaur one, who's got poison powers, and Flower of Heaven, who's the bunny rabbit one, who can fly and has energy blasts. And they're all fighting Supergirl, and she's like, okay, well, just got to keep my own. And it's basically just an extended fight scene of, like, she's caught in a grip by, I'm going to have to keep going back to her names, Daymax, and she uses, like, the energy from her body to basically explode out in an energy blast to get rid of Daymax's grip. And then Flower of Heaven starts trying to absorb her energy, which then Perilous, I'm starting to get it, tries to poison her through her eye because the rest of her is invulnerable, which I think her eye is too, but regardless, she heat visions away Perilous, and then she's like, all right, I got to take this out of the city, and she starts trying to fly away, but she's like, did you forget that I put a dome on the city last issue? And she's like, crap, you're right. So then she's attacked by Rain, bashed into the ground, and Rain's like, okay, how about this? I'll make you a deal. You're pretty strong, and if you join the World Enders, we will leave this planet, but you have to come with us, and we will search for our history together. And she's like, okay, how about this for a counteroffer? And she picks up a cop car and just throws it on top of Rain. She then is nearly blasted by Flower of Heaven, but then gets up and starts like prying apart her like chest plate, to which Flower of Heaven really starts freaking out. Perilous brings her down to the ground again, and we see Daymax coming up through the subway, holding a subway car, being like, hey, I found this underground. Aren't these guys kooky? As she throws the subway at Supergirl. Supergirl catches it, saves everyone inside. But then she's like, all right, there was an offhanded comment earlier that Rain made that only a World Ender can kill a World Ender. So what if I just do that? And she zooms over to Perilous, grabs like the whip thorn tentacle things that she's got, and shoves them inside of Daymax's body. And Rain's immediately like, whoa, all right, time out. We're going to go ahead and retreat now because I cannot, like, I need all of these people. I can't survive without all the World Enders. So, yeah, we're just going to take care of the poison that entered the body. But one day, Supergirl, we will return, and on that day, you will regret it. But I have an extra little plot hang for you. There were 5 tubes on our lab, but when we woke up, one of them was already broken out of. So who is and where is the 5th World Ender? And then they all teleport out. And then Supergirl standing in the wreckage of this city. I think it's New York. Is just like, okay, well, I pretty much nearly died, and I am just barely on my feet right now. But hey, I did it. I won. Woo! And that's it. So I don't know. I like the fact that Supergirl, because she does not have any like real training, anything like that, really did just kind of win by technicality there. Like she was not prepared to actually win the fight against like all these world enders. She did it because she managed to kind of take out one of them briefly, and that was enough for them to be like, okay, we need that one, so you win technically. And that's, I mean, it's a win's a win. So I like the fact that they didn't just immediately make her too overpowered. I like that. It's solid. Art-wise, same as it always really has been. I can't say I can really complain about anything here. I understood the fight and I understood everything else. My only real complaint in terms of the writing is the name Flower of Heaven. Like, I get they wanted to be kind of different, but like, that one really just felt out of place, you know? Rain, Daymax, Perilous, Flower of Heaven. Whatever. That's such a nitpick, though. I can't really fault it for that. So overall, I'm going to go ahead and give this issue a 7.5. I think it's very well done. Do I think it's a satisfying end to the arc as a whole of the World Ender stuff? No. But I do think that it's a good... If they're going to be continuing on with the World Ender things, of like finding the fifth one, I think it's a good springboard into that. If they're not doing that, then yeah, this was kind of a little bit disappointing in terms of this particular plot. But I also don't think that it was really about the World Enders. I think it was more about her figuring out who she was. And this was kind of just a plot device that was necessary to get it there. So overall, did enjoy the issue. I think I might have just liked it for different reasons than the writers hoped I liked it. Which isn't wrong, it's just different. Green Lantern Corps number 7, written by Peter Tomasi, art by Claude St. Aubin. We left off last issue with the Keepers being defeated and having to serve out a life sentence. And this issue is basically just an epilogue issue that mostly focuses on the fact that John Stewart snapped a fellow Green Lantern's neck. And how that's going to haunt him for a while. So we pick up at the crypt of the Green Lantern Corps, where his name is Kurt, and he's being laid to rest here. And they're singing out his praises because apparently the story that John Stewart presented to the Corps was that it was Kurt's willpower that took him literally to the edge of his life that allowed them to break free from the Keeper's building and get outside, but he died in the process. So yeah, they're singing out his praises and saying how, as a Green Lantern, being so brave and whatnot, he will be remembered here forever. So they make a green crystal version, sculpture, whatever you want to call it, of Kurt, and send it up into this sort of hall of statues where all the other Green Lanterns are. And they say the oath of the Green Lanterns, but saying how in brightest day and darkest night, no evil escaped his sight. Let those who worship evil's might beware Kurt's power, Green Lantern's light. And then we get a quick little glimpse over into Guy Gardner, who the Guardians have called in, and it's just like, hey, so we heard that you busted out 2 yellow lanterns and basically used them as weapons of mass destruction, also simultaneously executing them. The hell is that about? And Guy Gardner's like, all right, you know, in World War II with the atomic bombs, and they're like, you're not, please don't make this comparison here. And he's like, okay, but like I did the math, and it was smarter to do this than possibly wage a war that would cost all these civilians their lives. So you're welcome, bye. And they just don't have anything more to say about that, not at the moment at least. So then we go to Kurt's apartment on Oa, I believe, and John Stewart's there. He's packing up all of Kurt's stuff, and the dude who was also with John on the planet, Vandor, he also showed up, and he's like, hey, I saw that you were here packing up his stuff. And he's like, actually, this stuff was pretty much already packed up because he never unpacked it. He was always so busy on missions. Do you know he was only a Lantern for 1 year? 1 year. And I killed him. And he's like, hey, you did the right thing. He's like, no, I didn't do the right thing. I did what I had to do. There's a difference. And so basically Van Dor just tells him, like, look, it was an impossible situation, but you did the best possible choice out of it. And if we were in the same situation again and I started cracking, I would want you to do the same thing about me. And John Stewart's like, I don't want to be the Green Lantern's conscience. I don't want to be the guy who, like, holds the guilt of the Green Lantern. Where he's like, well, we're going to need someone to do it. So all the people who have died this arc, they're all in these green glass coffins, and they're being transported back to their home worlds. And, of course, John Stewart nominates himself to bring Kurt back to his planet. Guy Gardner's taking care of Porter, the teleporting one from, like, issue 2 or whatever. And as he's making his way through the universe, one by one, the Lanterns split off to go to their respective planets. And we see just this nice little montage of John passing by these different planets who are all looking up at him passing by, and a couple fellow Green Lanterns who, like, give out a signal to memorialize the dead. And finally, he makes it over to the planet of Loror, where Kurt is from, and he just stays in orbit for a little bit because he is just trying to build up the courage to go down. And when he finally does, Kurt's brother actually, like, sees the green glow in the sky. He's like, Kurt's home, and he runs back to his house where the parents are there, and we see, you know, they're already mourning their child's death as Kurt's brother comes up. And I'm not sure if I know his name. I think it's like Bert. Yeah, Kurt and Bert. So Bert comes up, and he has some sort of, like, mental deficiency, some sort of handicap, and he doesn't quite grasp that Kurt is actually dead in there, and he's just trying to, like, open your eyes, come on, get out of there. And finally they manage to pull Bert away, and they all go inside, and basically the father just says, like, he wanted to be a Green Lantern so badly. He tried so hard to be fearless, and John Stewart just tells him that being Green Lantern isn't about being fearless, it's about overcoming your fear. The only truly fearless ones are those who are dead. And it's like, was he worthy of being a Green Lantern? And it's like, he was worthy the moment he got the ring. That's what proved his worth. And at that moment, they question where Bert is, and John goes out to find him, starts tracking where Kurt is because he knows Bert won't be far behind. And he goes to a quarry where Bert is using a jackhammer to basically break through the glass coffin and get Bert out of there so that he can wake up and be okay again. And as he does so, he realizes Kurt doesn't even have his ring anymore. And he pleads with John to just let him have his ring back just so he can fly one more time. And he's like, I'm sorry, I can't. And as Bert asks why his brother had to die, he's like, Kurt died because he had to be really brave one last time so that all of us could live. He's like, so Kurt is a hero? He's like, yeah, Kurt was a hero. And finally, the last page is them going out to, I guess, the graveyard of this planet, and they have John Stewart carve out a gravestone in the shape of the Green Lantern symbol and engrave it with an engraving that says, Kurt Kalak, Green Lantern of Sector 2541, beloved son and best brother ever. And yeah, this issue's such a downer. Like, it has these moments of, like, oh, but, like, every time that John just gives a little bit of a pause, you just remember that all of this is just a lie that he's perpetuating so as to just not disrespect his fellow Lantern. It's just, oh my God, it's so just ouch the whole way through. And it was such, like, a nothing moment in the comic as well. Like, yes, when it happened, I think it was a full-page spread, but it was still, like, we had to move on past that scene because there were just bigger things at play. But now that we're just letting it sit, it's like, no, he was a guy. He had a life. He has a family. And they just really hit those moments perfectly. And dear Lord, it may not have been the most well-written issue, but the beats were there that just really make you feel it. So art-wise, it's also good. St. Claude does a pretty good job of mimicking the previous style that's been throughout this whole arc. And even when it doesn't, I feel that it's still really, really good overall. The only problem I have with it is the occasional face, but it's so few and far between that I really do not have an issue with it in general. So, yeah, overall, I'm going to give this one like an 8. I'm just going to say 8.5. I honestly do think it is just, it's a touching enough issue that it gives John so much more character immediately. Just immediately tells you, like, okay, here's the kind of guy he is. Like, just through him not saying something, that's enough. And it shows how he is still, like, struggling with keeping up this lie, but it's still something that he knows he has to do for his own sake as well as others. It's very well done, and I would highly suggest checking out at least that issue if you have not been checking out anything else in this arc. So, yeah, a hell of a downer to leave this trade on, but really, really, really good. Captain Atom number 7, written by J.T. Krul, art by Freddie Williams II. We left off last issue with the end of an arc where Captain Atom beat back this big monster that was like his prototype, and then we saw that in the near future the entire world's going to explode. So yeah, that's a thing to look forward to. This issue picks up with the dawn of the concept of time. So the first time that humans were putting up like rocks in the sand and then using that to like mark the seasons and the days and whatnot. That is where this clock that has been showing up all throughout Captain Atom started ticking at. That's where 0000000000 is. So going off that, in the year, what I assume is a year since then, 6594, we have this being that looks a whole lot like Captain Atom, but has this big red dot on his head, is sitting out in space, and he's got this dandelion that he's like creating life from, and at some point it gets away from him and he goes over into the sun and starts just like burrowing into it, and we see all these different visions throughout time of, I'm pretty sure it's all things related to Captain Atom, but it's also like some stuff is significantly outside of things that can be him, so it's definitely other things as well. I don't know. It's just this big double-page splash of, like, big important things. But regardless, we go to now. That was 20 years from now. This is now. So we go to now, and Captain Atom's just hanging over that one kid that he cured of cancer, like, forever ago, who's just out playing with his dad, playing Frisbee or whatever, and he's just happy that he could do something like that he was able to give this boy more future. And then he's like, well, maybe I can go and help other people. So he goes and talks to Dr. Magala, who he opens up with saying, absolutely not. You are not going to fix me. I don't need fixing. And he's like, I can help you talk again. He's like, I can talk. Of course, through his computerized voice. He's like, well, I can help you walk. And he's like, the reason I'm so smart, the reason I'm able to do the things I do is because I'm not distracted by all of this other stuff. If you gave me access to all this other stuff, I'm going to lose that knowledge, and that's what's most precious to me. So, no, you're not going to fix me because there are other ways to get out of this chair. And then we go down to the whole reason that he's actually there, which is they have a particle accelerator, and Captain Atom's just going to help make it go faster, I guess. And he's talking to Renita, just like, so, this is a pretty small crew here. Is everyone else afraid of me? He's just like, no, these are just the people I can trust because the general still wants you as a weapon. So, yeah, these people are cool. And she's like, I know your boyfriend isn't here. And he's like, yeah, no, Scott still hates you. We know that, but you're going to have to get over it. Moving on, let's go crash some particles. So he's focusing on the particles, helping them crash or whatever, but then he hears the energy from them nearly like speak to him, and then he starts getting flashes throughout his own past where he sees his dad teaching him how to ride a bike. He sees the day that Dr. Magala is telling him, hey, here's like this test ship I want you to use to go interdimensional traveling. Are you in? And he's like, yeah, I'm in. He's like, you don't even know what it would be like. And he's like, I don't care, I'm in. We see him getting a test from a doctor named Heather, I believe. And also him also hanging out with this girl, Heather, as a kid. And they go roller skating together and they hold hands. So they're kind of flirty with each other. And that just keeps bouncing back and forth between the two times. Then we see him actually getting into the interdimensional ship and just start taking it out for its run, but apparently something in the controls are going wrong, and Megala tells the doctors to power it down, but of course they can't just immediately power it down, they have to slowly do so. And as that's happening, he loses control of the ship. Then we cut to, I think, shortly before that, like a few months before that even, and we see Nathaniel Adams. Before he became any of that, he just came back from him being on duty, I think, and he finds out that his dad died while he, like, very recently, like he was hanging up something on a toilet and he fell and cracked his head open. So he was just dead in the bathroom. Then we get quick glimpses throughout his entire life in just rapid succession here, and then he gets himself kicked out of it back to now. And Renita's like, yo, hey, everything all right? We got some crazy readings there. He's like, yeah, no, sorry, I just got a little bit too close. So you want to go again? And she's like, actually, I got dinner with my boyfriend, so rain check. So then we see her going to dinner with the boyfriend, and Captain Adam, of course, is basically just like stalking them. He's like, I know that I shouldn't be here, and I know I could be like finding out the secrets to the universe, but it's the little things. And he sees Renita having fun on this date with Scott, and she's just like, I'd like to know more about Renita, like her favorite color. I hope it's blue. And then as he's staring at them, he realizes that the reflection is actually not him. It's this being from the beginning of the comic, the one from 20 years from now. And he's like, hey, Nathaniel, I know how much you care, but we need to talk. And that's where it ends, is him talking to his own reflection, it seems like. But it's clearly not him, or it's him 20 years from now, or something. I like it. I think it's good. It's the same artist, same writer. It's carrying on pretty much exactly where it left off from the last time, but it's just a new arc. It seems like they're playing around with this clock aspect a bit more, with the concept of time, more so than the concept of being, as the first arc did. And if that's the case, I really need to pay more attention to these timer things. I do kind of wish that they would have picked a better way of showing the time, because right now it's just days, hours, minutes, seconds, and then in the back of the clock it's years. But it's years from the moment that humanity first started keeping time. So in the back it's all 6,574, which does not translate in my head as any particular point in time. I understand 2012 at the point of this publishing was a bit arbitrary as well, but at least I could keep track of it a bit better. This one's going to take some adjusting. So I'm not saying that's my tiniest little nitpick. Everything else in here is pretty much fine. My biggest qualm with it is the fact that it's going to be really hard to keep track of time, if that's the thing that they're putting forward as the story from here on out. And the fact that, I don't know, the Renita Scott thing, maybe I just wasn't entirely, or it wasn't the story being told from Captain Adam's perspective, so it makes sense that we didn't get it, but it also does just feel like it came out of nowhere. The fact that they are now a couple, I don't know. It was strange to me. So overall, I'm going to give this one I'll give it a 7. I think it's good, and the art is still fantastic. The middle bit of just showing his entire life, I'm sure, will come into play later, but at this point it feels more like, yeah, we never actually really got to that origin story of Captain Atom, so maybe we should do that now. Which, it's not awful, but it's also just a bit scattershot and just fills in the blanks as bare necessities as possible. So yeah, I give it a 7. It's still a good issue overall. DC Universe presents number 7, aka Challengers of the Unknown, issue 2, written by Dan Didio and Jerry Ordway, art by Jerry Ordway. Left off last issue with the team escaping with a talisman from the Himalayas, and then a final panel reveal of Ace, their dead compatriot, coming out of a soul well thing. This issue picks up showing the soul well thing. 2 monk guys are casting a spell to bring out a demon, and the demon's like, oh god, this body is rotten, I need your souls. And they're like, yes, we will help you. And he sucks their souls from their body, and they go, no. But then he takes the form of a very wounded and evil-looking ace who says, like, ah, yes, forced to live in the lands of death and blah, blah. Point being is that he wants the challengers dead. I don't know. He just says it'll help his power and glory. Just roll with it. So apparently 2 months have passed. The challengers are now in Metropolis. And they are on a set. And June is there. And she's basically saying the set sucks. It looks like a 50s sci-fi movie. And Morgan Edge, who made appearances, I believe, in Superman? I don't know. Regardless, he's here and he's like, well, your show was scheduled for cancellation. If you want to keep complaining, we can just go ahead and cancel it. He's like, yeah, well, we've got the hottest thing on television since then. You want to get rid of that? Get us a better set. And then her cast comes in. They're like, hey, man, awesome set. I really like the 50 cheesy sci-fi thing. And Morgan Edge is like, see, focus groups make sense. All right, bye now. And so he walks off. And then they start talking about just everything that's been going on in the past issue. And how they were, Maverick had some buddies fly by that area of the Himalayas, but they couldn't find any city. They couldn't find anything. They couldn't even find the wreckage from the plane that they crashed. So June's like, that's impossible. There's got to be something going on. And the dying wish was to figure out what's going on with this talisman thing. So we've got to figure out what to do. And the one kid, Freddie or whatever, chimes up and he's like, I know where we can get some tech. Let's go to my house. So they go to some sort of like mountainside estate that's just like super duper rich person home. And Freddie's just like, I made some good money in the stock market. I bought this house, half party house, half laboratory. Let me take you to the laboratory half. So they go to the lab half, and apparently he's already been running tests on the talisman and discovered that it symbolizes some ancient thing, and there are at least like 7 talismans, and 2 of them they've already been able to locate. So they're out there, and he's already got tracks on where they are. And so June makes a call being like, hey, Mr. Edge, you know how you said you'd get me whatever I need for my show? Which honestly I didn't pick up on, but apparently he said it. They got a jet, and they're going out to take on this talisman thing, but they're framing it as part of the show, so they all are wearing matching jumpsuits, and all of them have cameras inside of their suits, so they can still use it as the TV show footage. And obviously they're a bit iffy about getting on a plane, but they do so, and they all get bad feelings about it, which we then see the demon ace guy over standing in the shadows just going, soon. And then TSA steps up, like, excuse me, sir, you're not allowed on the tarmac. And he's like, you dare interrupt me. And he sucks out their souls and beats them up. Then we go to the Teutoburg forest in Germany, which has some big rock formations. And apparently they only discovered that these rock formations had caves 2 months ago, a.k.a. when all the events of issue 1 went down. So they go inside and they see these very out-of-place sculptures of, like, ancient Christianity or something like that. I don't know. It's a bit confusing. But regardless, they go deeper in the cave, and immediately they stumble across one of the talismans just sitting on a pedestal, and June just goes yoink. And they're like, haven't you ever seen Indiana Jones? You need to put the dirt on there to even it out. And she's like, this isn't a movie. But then literally that thing starts happening, and all of the sculptures on the wall from before start coming to life and coming off of the wall and start attacking them. Meanwhile, we go back to Freddie and a professor character who I guess was there the whole time. But regardless, they are analyzing the talisman in Freddie's lab, and they're just basically talking like how Freddie like always had to be the best at everything, but people hated him for it, but he was still the best. Meanwhile, the professor guy just teaches kids science on TV. He's so smart, but he just chooses to be lazy. And then they just do a Google search and find this guy online is talking about the talismans and has a lot more info than they do. And then Freddie gets stabbed. He shows up and stabs Freddie and then goes to stab the professor as well. So then we get the backstory of we get back to the story of the challengers. The rock monsters are attacking them and not really giving them any chance to escape. They're all after the talisman, obviously. But June's refusing to give it up, so they all start shooting at the statues, which does next to nothing until Maverick gets a big laser gun out, and he shoots through one of the statues. He hands Red a grenade, and Red starts climbing up to the top of the mountain. seemingly leaving the rest for dead. But then he plants the grenade inside of the mountainside, and when it goes off, it causes a rock fall that crashes on top of all the statues, but everyone else manages to get out fine. And as they are all congratulating each other on narrowly escaping death, we see Professor and Freddie dead on the ground back at home. And June's just like, well, I sure hope that they found some answers. Womp, womp, womp. Okay, so this is apparently a 3-part series. We are 2/3 of the way done with this. And knowing that, I don't feel like I know anything. I feel like I am completely lost as to what in the hell is going on here. So, it's not great. The art style leaves a lot to be desired of. And, I mean, I understand the geography of each layout. I understand where everybody is. I can see who is who. I'm never mistaking characters for other characters. But it's just like it's house style, and then it's taking it down 2 notches of like just worse. And I don't know what to place it on. It just feels like really lazy for like all of it. So yeah, I don't know. Art is not great. And then just writing wise, I mean, if you need more time, give yourself more time. But 3 issues and you're telling this big thing of you want to find 7 talismans and you got 1.5 so far because you haven't even made it back to town with this one yet. There's no way that's happening over the course of the only way I could see this series ending is that they face Ace and take him out. But then they're like, but we still have to find the talismans in some future thing that never actually happens. So I gotta give this like a 4.5 because I don't know what they're going for here. I have no idea what is the aim of this series in just this amount of time. And maybe I shouldn't be viewing, like maybe I should just be living the week to week pretending that I don't know this is going to end next issue. But like the solicitations have already come out. Everyone who cares to check knows that that's the end. So I don't know. It's just this feels like such a stopgap, but they didn't even plan out the stopgap. So I don't even know what this series is anymore. But it's a 4.5. That's what this particular issue is. Justice League number 7, written by Jeff Johns, art by Gene Ha. We left off last issue with the end of the origin arc, so this is now present day. And we are in Baltimore, Maryland, and there's a whole bunch of weird gremlin-looking tooth monsters coming after all the civilians. And we have some soldiers around from Argus, including a Steve Trevor, Colonel Steve Trevor, who's shooting them down with guns, but they just keep on coming. And there's a reporter on the scene who's like, Steve Trevor. She's like, there are monsters here, dude. Get out of the way. And she's like, oh, but where are the Justice League? And, of course, on cue, the Justice League show up, and everyone's like, it's them, the real heroes. You stupid soldiers can't do anything. But these guys are here to save the day. And Steve's like, great, that's fantastic. So they all show up and start beating everybody up. We get some narration written in some weird handwritten font saying like, thanks to me, called them the world's greatest superheroes, called them modern gods, but that's all gonna change. And then we get down to, apparently they've beaten back a bunch of the monsters, but Batman's like, all right, we're here for the main thing though. Where's the primary target? And apparently it's a biological warfare specialist named Dr. Samuel Street. He was developing a spore virus to Argus, but then someone got in the way and stole something called the Orb of Ra, which then, because of him doing this stuff, he infected Street to the spore virus. And they're basically just saying that, okay, his spore virus allows him to create these things about once every 10 seconds. So as long as he's out there, these things are going to keep coming. So they managed to track him down to basically his ex-wife's house because they got divorced because he was abusive. I think that's the gist of it. And so he went back there and he's just going to raise some hell. So everyone's okay with beating him up now. And Batman's laying out the plan of like, okay, you guys handle this thing. Flash, you lead these spore creatures away. And then Green Lantern's like, whoa, 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 whoa. We're the Justice League, Batman. We got this. And they all fly off. And Batman's like, just do your jobs. So Flash and Green Lantern make it to Street's ex-wife's house first. And Flash is like, do you have to poke the bear so much? And he's like, yeah, it's kind of funny, right? But as they approach the house, these even bigger, meaner spore creatures come out saying, stay away, stay away. And then we see Street is inside and he's just fully deformed into this monster. And as they get into it, the entire rest of the league shows up and he's basically just easily knocked down. He's just like, I'm not going to go down easy. And he's like, yeah, you are. And they'll knock him down. So we cut to 1 hour later and Steve Trevor's giving a press conference basically on everything that just happened. And as he just gets into, well, we should thank the Justice League for, and then immediately a reporter springs up being like, hey, so everyone here is wondering the same question. Why do we need Argus? Why do we need the soldiers? Like, yes, you are the liaison to the Justice League, but, like, they have literally a spotless record, and they are perfect, and you know what? We should just get rid of governments, too. Like, if we just let the Justice League take control, like, they could solve all the problems with everything. Justice League are literally the best people ever and have no flaws whatsoever. I'm not even kidding. That's, like, the entirety of this conversation here. Nobody has a bad thing to say about them just taking over the world. So, as Steve Trevor steps off the stage, he's approached by one more reporter who's basically like, hey, heard you and Wonder Woman had a thing going on. She wear her boots to bed? And Steve, like, nearly breaks his hand. And as he lets the reporter get away, a woman steps up saying, hey, I'm your new aide. My name's Etta Candy. And she's like, hey, cool, awesome. We got to go talk to Congress, so tag along. So he goes to, like, some oversight committee in front of Congress, and they're basically like, all right, so why haven't we been allowed on the Justice League Watchtower? Like, they haven't let you up there, they haven't let anybody up there. We pumped so much money into them, we want some level of control. And Steve's like, the Justice League are here for good. They've been doing a fantastic job, and you want to control them? I'll go ahead and tell them that. I'll tell them that you want control. And it's like, it's not, and it's like basically shouting down these senators saying, you guys can't deal with them. They are so far above you that whatever you try to throw at them, they might just get pissy and literally ruin your lives. And all these people want them to take over the government. You are literally, like, asking them to. And immediately they're like, oh, we're so sorry. We didn't mean to upset you. And he's like, cool, bye. So he steps out. He asks Eddy to go get him some coffee while he hops on his computer, starts up a video call with Wonder Woman, and they start talking for a second, but then before they can really actually talk about anything, the rest of the league is like in the background all arguing with each other. And then we get Green Lantern saying, hey, Steve, could you send up more snacks? We're running low. He's like, I already gave you your monthly ration. He's like, yeah, but I kind of took some of that home, so we need some more. And then Batman shows up. And, okay, if you've been reading the Justice League International book, this next part makes no sense because he literally says that the UN needs to shut down the Justice League International because it's an embarrassment. Like, he was in that, and he was actually, like, really pushing for them to continue. So I don't know where this part came from. A little bit weird. Regardless, everyone kind of just keeps on telling Steve their complaints and their random whims. And as soon as they walk off screen, he tries to talk with Diana for a second, but as he's like, hey, yeah, I'm just glad to help the Justice League. And she's like, cool, click. And so he gets pissed off, and Edda comes back in, and it's just like, so, there's clearly some tension between you and Wonder Woman. You want to tell me what's going on? He's like, I love her. And he's like, well, then why don't you tell her that? And he's like, that's the problem. I did tell her that, and that's why we're in the situation we're in now. And then we see the person who was talking at the beginning, or like the narration box is saying that, oh, everything's going to change, they won't see him as gods. Turns out it's the guy who wrote the book at the end of the last issue, David Graves. And now he's like, I'm the one who was the intruder who caused Spore to infect that guy. I have the Orb of Ra. And I realize now that the Justice League are not gods. They are bad people, and they can be destroyed. And the thing that can destroy them is Colonel Steve Trevor. Dun, dun, dun. Okay. This also has a backup story that goes into the Shazam overarching thing. I'm going to talk about those on the 5th week, the next time that comes up. But as for this issue, it's a Steve Trevor story. That's the thing of it, is that it's just like the first part of it is just to show like, okay, here's how the League works together. Here's how effective they are. And then the rest of it is how does Steve Trevor deal with the fact that he needs to play nice with the League. Everyone loves the League more than him. And everybody's trying to get something out of him. And I like it because it shows a very thin line that Steve has to walk this entire time. But it's still just like, I don't know. The main story came in that last page. I don't know how much Steve's obviously going to play so much into whatever David Graves' plan is, but it just doesn't seem like a big thing. I don't know. I feel like everything here was just show you the day in the life of Steve Trevor. Not so much to further the plot, just more so to introduce you to here's how Steve lives. Which is fine for the sake of the character, but I also wonder how much is it really going to matter. In terms of just ignoring that, what do I think of this issue not looking to the future? It's fine. I think it's got some good moments to it. I think the Steve and Wonder Woman moment and how, like, you can feel when he's starting up the video call that, like, he's nervous about it. And then at the very end, he's trying to, like, make it go a certain way and it's just not working for him. I like those. I think those are very solid moments. The rest of it does show just a good relationship of how people see him compared to the Justice League, and it's good. It's good overall. So overall, I'm going to give this one I give it a 7.5. I think it's very well done. Gene Ha does a very good job on the art. I would say I might like some of these things more than I like the Jim Lee art from the last arc. I think it is. There are a couple panels that are a little bit iffy, but for the most part, it is very well done throughout. So, yeah, 7.5, and I'm looking forward to seeing where it goes from here. Wonder Woman number 7, written by Brian Azzarello, art by Cliff Chiang. We left off last issue with the gang forming and completing their plan to blind Hera from messing with their lives, but also Zola got captured by Hades, so that's what we're dealing with now. We pick up this issue outside of Club Eros, where a man is chasing down another man. The man who is being chased is Eros. That gets revealed later, but I can't just keep saying the man and the man, so the man is calling after Eros, and he's like, hey, look, I know that you made this guy, like, fall in love with me, but he's like obsessed now and I can't get any peace or quiet from him. So please help me. And Eros is just like, hey, when you came to me, you were crying with tears of like misplaced passion. I did what you asked and now you're crying for another reason. I have no pity for you anymore. And as the guy goes to like grab Eros' shoulder, Eros turns around and plants a gun in his face. And he's just like, I gave you what you wanted. So how about you say thank you and get the hell out of my face? And he shoos him along as Wonder Woman, Lennox, and Hermes show up. I think that's who it is. And so Eros immediately pulls a gun on him, and he's like, so what are you guys doing here? And he's like, we need a favor. And he's like, a favor? Yeah, of course. Anything for you, Uncle Hermes. So they go back to Eros' place, and they basically tell him the whole story of everything that happened in the previous 2 issues. And he's like, yeah, that was a bad idea. Like, you, not only are you now involved with Hera, you're also involved with the 2 brothers. Like, that was a bad idea. And Lennox was like, well, it seemed like a good idea at the time. I mean, I don't know. So basically their whole thing here is that they're coming to Eros because Eros basically rooms with Hephaestus. And Hephaestus is the guy who makes the weapons for the gods. And they need some weapons if they're going to take on Hades. So he's hoping that he can hook them up. And Eros is like, I mean, I'll let you in, but he doesn't take kindly to guests, announced or unannounced. So as he steps through this jewelry shop, which is just a front, he gets into the back room, and we see this giant forge full of all these what seem to be robots helping out Hephaestus, who is like this weird demonic ape-shaped being with like lava hands. Pretty creepy. But basically, I guess they explain the plan to him. It's Mount Etna, by the way. And Hephaestus is like, it's going to take more than weapons to get into hell. And he's like, well, Wonder Woman's just like, you made me the lasso, and that's worked out great for me. It's like, that lasso's not a weapon. This is a weapon. And he pulls out a whip that literally shatters like a battle axe into two. He's like, here, take the whip. That'll be a weapon. So then we see another day of them just talking, and when they start explaining more of the plan of like, okay, yes, now we're caught into this scheme between the brothers and Hera and all that stuff, we see that one of the lava pools that like he gets his refined metals from spawns out this giant lava beast thing, and Hephaestus is like, great. So because you guys are messing with Hades and I'm giving you weapons, Hades is summoning these monsters into my studio, and I will not have that. So he goes after it, tries to bash it with a hammer. It doesn't quite work and gets stuck in the beast's jaws. So Wonder Woman immediately jumps up and tips over this giant pool of water, which is meant to cool down the lava pool. And it cools down the monster to the point where it freezes. And we see Wonder Woman's able to use the lasso effectively enough as a whip. And so she whips the beast and it just crumbles into dust. But as she does so, she sees a couple of like these robots that were around. It turns out they aren't robots. They're guys. They are guys in like armor suits. And it's revealed that these guys are actually the male children of the Amazons. And Wonder Woman's super surprised by that. And they're like, what, are you like, yes, there's a 50-50 chance of boy or girl. And it's like, I just assumed that we all had girls by the will of the gods. And it's like, the gods don't care about you. Trust me, I'm one of them. So then we get the backstory that apparently like 3 or 4 times every century, the Amazons go out to like nearby ships. They seduce all the men on board, have their way with them, and then like just throw them overboard, leaving them to die. And then 9 months later, all the girls that are born are like praised and brought into society, like, hooray, new Amazon children. But then all the boys are just secretly taken away, and they are brought out to basically drown them. But Hephaestus shows up and says, I will trade you weapons for these children so that I can use them as my forge minions or whatever. And Wonder Woman does not take that very well, that they are being used to basically be slaves. And so that night, Lennox also picks up on that. That night, Lennox comes over to Wonder Woman's room. And he's like, I know what you're doing. I've got the same idea. Let's go do it. So they go down to Hephaestus' room and tie him up with the lasso. And basically tell him, like, here's the deal. You have to tell the truth because that's actually my weapon. My weapon is the truth. And she's like, Hephaestus is just like, the lasso doesn't do that. Your intimidation does. And you just blame the rope. And so she immediately throws him through the wall into the forge and just yells for all of her brothers, like, you are warriors, you are Amazons, male or female, you are still warriors, rise up against your master. And they're like, hey, no, like, let him go, he's a cool guy. Like, your sisters, the Amazons, they were going to drown us all. This guy saved us, and he lets us just make art with him. We're really cool with this situation here. Please stop messing this up for us. And she's just like, oh, I'm sorry. And Hephaestus gets out of the rope and he's like, I get it. Your heart's in the right place. Get some rest because tomorrow you are going to hell. And that's where we leave off. I like this issue. It's pretty much just a one-shot as far as I can tell. It's just setting up the concept of Hephaestus on this like tiny little mild plot. But it's a solid enough little sidetrack of like, no, Wonder Woman doesn't get the full picture here. She sees like the slavery aspect of it, but she doesn't see how like it's a good deal for everybody in the end. Like there are net positive deals here. So yeah, it's a nice little glimpse into that. Art-wise, it's fantastic as it has been. Don't really have any issues throughout. No, yeah, it's really is just consistent the whole way through. I don't know if the male Amazon, like that seems like one of those things that's like a massive continuity change that they're just kind of casually throwing out here, but I don't know the history of it, so I can't particularly speak of it. I do, however, think that the fact that the Amazon women are able to see men 3 or 4 times every century seems like it would be more of note, considering then when the one guy washed up on the island, everyone was like, oh, Jesus. But regardless, it's something. I like it, though. I'm going to go ahead and give this one I'm going to give it an 8. I think it's actually worth that much. So I am looking forward to seeing how tricked out in weapons they are. Because just full disclosure, the next cover is Wonder Woman with dual-wielding golden pistols. I'm down for that. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing where this goes from here. Blue Beetle number 7, written by Tony Bedard, art by Marcio Takara. We left off last issue with Jaime basically making the decision that he is too much of a danger to his family and friends, so he's just leaving entirely. And this issue picks up with him, I'm pretty sure, in New York, where he's just chilling out in Times Square, and on the big screen in Times Square is shown a news clip of him backhanding the girl. I can't remember her name outright, but yeah, basically his low moment. And he's like, oh, all right, cool, that's great, so happy that I have that up there. And apparently it's from a website that basically just has an axe to grind with any superheroes, period, over the fact that they can straight up, lift cars and kill people. But he's showing this footage because, like, and this guy, he I don't know if that's a skin or whatever, but that girl's lucky to be alive. And Jaime is basically just in his head being like, I had to do that in order to let her live. Like, that's, geez, this sucks. And so he's just hearing all this stuff, and then he's like, all right, look, I'm here in this city, and the suit's just talking to him, being like, why are we here? And he's like, because I have to get away from my family. He's like, no, like, why are we here in this city specifically? And he's like, 1, I can't be anywhere near Paco, because if I accidentally trigger his transformation again, he's going to kill me. So there's that. And then 2, I don't know how to do the superhero thing, and I'm pretty sure there are a lot of superheroes in New York, so I'm hoping I just bump into one. And he realizes he's hungry, and he doesn't have any money for food. And the suit's like, all right, well, I'll just get you that. And he's like, what do you mean get me that? And he's like, get ready to acquire funds. And he goes into like an ATM kiosk, and he's talking to the suit, and he's just like, okay, we'll do this one time, but we're going to repay the bank. And it's like, I don't care. Look, put your finger next to the card holder. I'll take care of it. He's like, can you at least wipe the surveillance cameras? He's like, yeah, sure. And can you make sure the money comes out of like the bank's account instead of just some random person? He's like, that doesn't matter. Get ready for the money. And as he does so, every ATM like on the block just starts spitting out 50s. And of course, everyone just makes a mad scramble for it. And the suit's like, all right, pick up the money. What are you doing? And he's like, why you gotta ruin this, man? Why you gotta ruin everything cool? And so Jaime just flies up. Basically, he's just using the suit to get high enough off the streets that he can just sleep on like random balconies and stuff like that where muggers can't get to him. But he still has not come across any sort of superhero people. But the suit is really, really eager to get him out of New York specifically. Like, the suit senses that there's some sort of enemy present in this city. So then we cut over to who is probably the enemy. A guy is looking for his cat, and this weird, bald, pale man shows up, and the guy's like, hey, have you seen my cat? It's Persian, short hair, red collar. And he's like, no, sorry. You should probably go home, though. And he's like, why? In case my cat is there? And then we see this guy go into his apartment, and he's talking to another very large man, telling him, you should stop feeding so often. The natives are getting suspicious. And they're like, they're lucky I don't eat them. And he spits out the red color that obviously belonged to the cat, whose name was Miss Kitty, by the way. We cut back to El Paso, where Jaime's family's just trying to get the police to like look for their son. And the police are like, look, we put him on the missing kids thing, but, there's a lot of crazy stuff that just happened. There were, like, those 2 supervillains that showed up at your house and blew up your house, and then there was the mansion that just disappeared into nowhere, and then that kid who was in the hospital came back to life. that doesn't really relate to our job specifically, but regardless, there's crazy stuff happening here. A missing kid is the least of our concerns, but just stay put. I'm sure he'll show back up. And then we cut back to Manhattan, where Jaime is still like, he's like, all right, where's this enemy you're talking about? Maybe we could just deal with this. And as the suit like narrows it down a little bit and starts scanning, he sees this invisible presence hopping through town, like invisible to the naked eye, but the suit's able to pick it up. So Jaime makes his way over to the person in the suit, and as he does so, the person phases through the top of the building without like any problem at all. And when Jaime looks down to see into the next room, what's down there, it's apparently a jewelry store. So the guy's like, so Jaime's just like, great, this guy's a burglar, we're gonna have to stop him. So he busts in and tells the guy to stop. He's like, whoa, hold on, you can see me? And we see just before that the guy's name is Short Timer, and he's talking to a guy over a headset named Stopwatch, and he's like robbing this place because Stopwatch says to do so. So regardless, that's the thing. But as Jaime starts throwing out punches, nothing is landing. This guy is actually intangible. And the Short Timer is blasting out energy blasts, and when it hits stuff, it doesn't just destroy it, it ages it like rapidly. Like he is able to age people. So the suit manages to fire off some sort of electrical blast, which does manage to connect onto Short Timer, which once Short Timer's helmet comes off, we see that it's just a kid who's like barely older than Jaime. But then Short Timer's like, screw this, man, I'm out. And he just phases through the floor all the way down to the subway. And Jaime's like, all right, well, are we going to be able to track him? And the suit's like, I don't know, probably 80%. And Jaime's like, all right, cool. Guess I'll just try to clean up here a little bit. But then the family that owns the jewelry store shows up and is just like, hey, wait a minute. I recognize you. You're the guy who beat up that girl. You suck. And he's like, I'm a hero. Dang it. So then we cut over to Short Timer, who's arriving at Prodigal House, shelter for runaways. He gets in, goes down to the basement, and he tells Stopwatch, like, hey, this guy showed up. He was able to see and hurt me, which you said shouldn't have been possible, but I managed to get away. Regardless, why am I aching all over? And he's like, oh, that was a side effect of the suit. Sorry. And as Short Timer takes off his helmet, we see he's aged up to like his 60s to 70s minimum. And he's like, you didn't say anything about side effects. And then we see Stopwatch, who's this guy that has just like a whole bunch of machinery embedded inside of him. And he's like, why do you think I called you Short Timer? None of you ever question why I give you that code name. You're all so stupid. And that's where we leave off, is this guy with seemingly time-based abilities named Stopwatch may be the main threat. I like it. I think that the whole dicking around Manhattan, just looking for like the story for 4 or 5 pages kind of felt a little bit pointless. I did like the ATM scene just because the suit, like, I was being shorter with it than the suit is, but the suit is being really short with him. Like, he's not putting up a fight or anything like that. He's like, you need to eat. I'm going to get you money. And anytime you question anything, I'm just going to tell you that's stupid and stop worrying about it. And I just love that. I really like the suit's attitude right now, where he's just totally done with Jaime's bullshit. It's great. So no, I enjoyed this issue. I think it's more so just the bridging between the two arcs right now. Like, we got him out of the town and we have to reestablish, like, what is he doing while he's here and what is the people back home doing as well. So it's a bit slow in that regard, but I think we're going to pick it up because, hey, aging character, playing with time, that's always interesting. So I'm going to go ahead and give this one a 6.5. I think it's pretty well done. The art is fantastic throughout. There's a lot of detail on Jaime's suit that I don't feel like is on every character's face, but it only makes Jaime pop out more. And I actually do really like that. It gives it just a little bit more of like an alien feel to it. So, yeah, good. It's a solid book, and I'm hoping that that continues for the rest of the arc, however long that may be. Legion of Superheroes number 7, written by Paul Levitz, art by Francis Portela. Last issue, 3 plots happened. This issue, 3 plots will happen. Look, I'm going to keep this real brief as best I can. So, A plot, Dragonwing and Chameleon Lad are fighting against this gang in China that all have like dragon wings and superpowers or whatever, and they're kind of holding their own for a while, but then Chameleon Lad actually gets like beaten by this Phoenix guy who leads them all. And this random lady who genuinely, like, I looked through this entire series. She never gets a name. It's Harmonia, but, like, she doesn't get the little box that says, hey, this is Harmonia, because Harmonia is her actual name. So Harmonia and Comic Queen are approached by Dream Girl, and they say, hey, something's going on with Chameleon Lad. He's in distress. Go help him. So we see the Dragon Wings trying to take on this whole tribe, and she's doing a pretty decent job at holding her own, but in the end, she's still no match. And then the Harmonia and Comic Queen show up and save their asses. And her sister betrays her and is about to like try to kill her. And then Harmonia just says, Phoenix, you are so low and far beneath me. You will never be leader of China or whatever, but China will still prevail after you. And she like traps him in some rocks, and then Dragonwing tackles her sister and takes her out. That was it. That was the whole A plot. B plot, that boiling sea of lava on Earth is still riling, despite the fact that Chemical Kid or whatever supposedly fixed the thing, which means that clearly it isn't some industrial accident that causes it. It's somebody specific doing it. So then Sun Boy or whatever jumps down into the lava and basically just like gets rid of the lava, as best I can tell. Like, it looks like it's just gone. And when he does so, we see that there are two people who are actually behind it, and they are apparently tied to some part of that dragon thing that's going on in the A plot, but even they don't understand what the hell's going on with that. C plot, there is a forget their name, but the alien invader guys, they are basically creating new mixes of Daxamite DNA and their own DNA so that they can invade and attack the Legion, and I guess it's working. And then D plot, there's literally one page of Brainiac and Mon-El talking about how Brainiac wants to lead the Legion, and Mon-El is like, okay, in that case we'll start another election and you can win fair and square, and they said deal. So that's going to be something happening, I guess. That's it. That's the whole book. That's everything going on. I don't get it. Oh, last page, because that's where all the plots converge, kind of. The A and B, at least, is basically Dragonwing and specifically Chemical Kid being like, hey, in Legion training school, you didn't tell us it was going to be this crazy serious, Chameleon Lad. And Chameleon Lad's like, yep, if you mess up for even a second like I did, it could be all over. I was lucky today. And why? Like, I don't even understand what's happening anymore. And maybe that's on me. But, like, it's not even, like, it's one thing to have an A plot and a B plot that, like, diverge from the same point or something like that, which this one didn't. It had two complete, there was a weird lava thing going on, and then there's this weird going to find my sister thing going on. And it just so happened that they converged in the end, which that may make some sense in the scale of like the whole story, but it's really confusing at the beginning because it's like, why are we following these two completely? I have no reason to care about any of these until finally you get to the end and you're like, oh, I guess they were connected. But even then, the C plot doesn't matter, the D plot doesn't matter to this, but eventually at some point way further down they'll connect, but that doesn't make me care about them now. And that's really what I need right now, is for some reason to care. None of these, there's a billion fucking characters and I don't care about any of them. Just to give you Comic Queen, I had to go through this entire book looking for her first appearance because that's the only time they ever say her name. God, I dislike this book so much. It's the end of the first one. That's it for this trade. Do I felt like an arc ended here? No. This felt just as final as any other issue that we've dealt with so far. There's just no good storytelling here. I don't understand the appeal of it at all. I don't understand what's selling it beyond the fact that there are Legion of Superheroes fans in the general sense. I'm giving this like a 3.5. a lot of that's just down to the fact of at least it managed to continue on the stories from the previous issue. Like, they did the A to B stuff. I at least got that. But everything else, man, I don't know. No, I'm not even going to bother justifying it. I just don't like it. That's it. I just don't like it. 3.5. Boo. And that's it. That's all the comics that came out from DC Comics this March 21st, 2012. And don't click away yet. Don't leave. I do have one more thing I need to tell you. But first, let me tell you what's coming out next week. Next week, March 28th, we have 14 comics, including the very first event of the New 52, which kicks off with the number 7 issues of Justice League Dark and I, Vampire. They will be parts 1 and 2 of Rise of the Vampires. But additionally, we have the number 7 issues of Batman the Dark Knight, Superman, Green Lantern New Guardians, Aquaman, The Flash, The Fury of Firestorm, The Savage Hawkman, All-Star Western, Blackhawks Voodoo, and Teen Titans. Additionally, the number 6 final issue of Legion's Secret Origin. So, yeah. What else do I need to tell you? First off, Twitter, at DC Comics Podcast. You can go ahead and hit me up there with the hashtag New52. Genuinely, no one else uses it. It's literally only me. It's incredible. Additionally, we have a Patreon, Mild Fuzz TV. You can go ahead for as low as $1, get something cool. I don't know what. Maybe a t-shirt. Probably not. But that one thing I wanted to tell you is if you're watching this anywhere near the time of actual release, I just did a review of the Batman movie over on Mild Fuzz Movies. It is genuinely longer than the movie itself. I'm not kidding. We talked for over 3 hours about that movie. So please go check it out if you are interested at all in that. But with that said, that is all I have this week. Thank you very much for watching if you have been. And always remember, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.